The Eternal Assembly. The celestial parliament had governed the galaxy for 11,000 cycles, and in all that time, no species had ever challenged its authority. High Chancellor Varamis Kale stood at the center of the crystalline amphitheater, his 4 eyes scanning the representatives of the 73-member civilizations. Each delegate occupied a floating platform suspended by gravitational fields, arranged in concentric circles that rose toward the domed ceiling. The Parliament's home station, Axiom Prime, orbited a neutron star whose rhythmic pulses seemed to beat in time with the Chancellor's own hearts. "The matter is settled," Varamis declared, his voice amplified through neural link translators. His crystalline exoskeleton refracted the chamber's ambient light into rainbow patterns across the walls. The species designated as humanity has submitted their application for membership. The evaluation committee has rendered its verdict. Ambassador Thyra Vex of the Melodian Collective leaned forward on her platform, her gossamer wings folding with barely contained anticipation. "And the verdict, Chancellor?" "Rejected." The word echoed through the chamber with finality. The humans failed to meet the minimum requirements for civilized conduct. Their petition is denied for the 5th consecutive stellar cycle. A ripple of satisfaction moved through the assembly. Delegate Corvin Thrace, representing the militant Dravic hegemony, allowed himself a rare smile. His scaled face caught the light as he nodded approvingly. "On what grounds this time?" asked Senator Lisa Morgan, the Etherean observer whose people rarely spoke but whose words always carried weight. Varamis gestured, and a holographic display materialized at the chamber's center. Images flickered past: human conflicts, environmental damage, social inequality, tribal divisions that persisted even as they reached for the stars. They war among themselves. They poison their own birth world. They cannot achieve the unity threshold required of all Parliament species. Varamis's tone was not cruel, merely matter-of-fact. "By our charter, established when the first civilizations joined together, membership requires a unified planetary government and 3 centuries of peaceful coexistence. Humanity has achieved neither." What Varamis did not mention, what the Parliament had classified under the highest security protocols, was the real reason for humanity's rejection. Buried in the confidential files was a single phrase from the Evaluation Committee's actual report: "Unpredictable adaptability presents existential risk to current power structure." 15 light-years away, in a cramped quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel Prometheus, Ambassador Sienna Dracker received the news with grim determination rather than surprise. "5th time," muttered her aide, Marcus Vallon, slamming his hand against the bulkhead. "5th damn time they've shut us out." Sienna watched through the viewport as the massive bulk of Axiom Prime glittered in the distance. At 42 years old, she'd spent half her life trying to secure humanity's place among the stars. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray, and the lines around her eyes spoke of countless sleepless nights spent drafting proposals, negotiating protocols, pleading humanity's case to alien bureaucrats who viewed her species as little more than promising children playing with dangerous toys. "They'll never let us in," said Dr. Kayvon Reese, the mission's chief xenosociologist. He floated in the zero-gravity section of the cabin, his weathered face troubled. "Not through official channels. The Parliament doesn't want members, it wants subjects." Sienna turned from the viewport, her expression hardening. "Then we stop asking for permission." "What are you suggesting?" Marcus asked. "The Parliament's charter has loopholes," Sienna said, pulling up data on her tablet. "I've studied it for 20 years. There's a provision, Article 47, subsection 9, that allows species to claim seats through the right of contribution." Kayvon raised an eyebrow. "Contribution to what?" "To galactic security, scientific advancement, or cultural preservation. Any species that makes an undeniable contribution to the Parliament's interests can petition for emergency membership, bypassing normal requirements." "That clause hasn't been invoked in 4,000 years, Marcus said. "No species has managed to contribute anything the Parliament couldn't do better themselves." A slow smile crossed Sienna's face. "That's because they've never dealt with humans before." She pulled up a star chart, highlighting a sector of space labeled Quarantine Zone Sigma. The region glowed an ominous red. "The void-born plague," Kayvon breathed. "The Parliament's been trying to contain it for a decade." "And failing," Sienna said. "It's spreading, consuming worlds. They've lost 3 civilizations already, and according to my sources, they're no closer to a solution." She looked between her companions. "But we might be." "That's insane," Marcus said. "We don't have the resources, the technology." "We have something better," Sienna interrupted. We have desperation. We have ingenuity. We have the ability to think outside the box that the Parliament has constructed for itself over millennia. She straightened, decision made. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we're changing strategies. If the Parliament won't open the door, we'll kick it down. In the Celestial Parliament, Varamis Kale had no idea that humanity had just stopped knocking. The Voidborn threat. The quarantine zone designated Sigma 7 had once been home to the thriving Calarian civilization. Now it was a graveyard. Sienna stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as they approached the zone's outer marker, a lattice of warning buoys that pulsed with universal danger signals in 17 different languages. Beyond them, the stars themselves seemed dimmer, as though something was drinking the light. Sensor readings are wrong, reported Lieutenant Zara Chen from the navigation console. Her fingers danced across holographic controls, frowning at the data. Mass readings fluctuate between solid matter and empty space. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist according to known physics. That's the Voidborn, Dr. Kayvon Reese said grimly. He'd been studying Parliament records on the plague for the past 3 days without sleep. It doesn't just consume matter, it rewrites the fundamental rules of reality in localized pockets. Quarantine protocols exist because the Parliament literally doesn't know how to fight it. Marcus Vallon appeared at Sienna's shoulder. We're receiving a priority transmission from Axiom Prime. Chancellor Varamis himself. The holographic display shimmered, and the imposing figure of the High Chancellor materialized before them. His crystalline features were set in stern disapproval. Ambassador Dracker, you are in violation of 17 separate quarantine directives. Retreat immediately or be fired upon. Chancellor, Sienna replied evenly, we're here to help. Help? Varamis's laugh was like breaking glass. Your species can barely manage interplanetary flight without catastrophe. The Voidborn has destroyed civilizations 10,000 years your senior. Your presence here is suicide, and I will not allow you to become additional vectors for contamination. Then consider us expendable test subjects, Sienna said. If we fail, you've lost nothing. If we succeed, you've gained a solution to your greatest threat. A long pause. Sienna could see other figures moving in the background of the Chancellor's transmission. Other Parliament members gathering to observe this unexpected development. What makes you believe humans can accomplish what the combined intellects of the Parliament have not? Asked a new voice. Senator Lisa Morgan stepped into view, her luminous form pulsing with curiosity. Kayvon stepped forward. Because we think differently. The Parliament's approach has been to contain and eliminate using superior technology. We excel at adaptation and improvisation. We've survived ice ages, plagues, near-extinction events, not through superiority but through stubborn refusal to quit. Stubbornness is not a strategy, Varamis said coldly. It's worked so far, Sienna replied. Chancellor, I'm invoking Article 47, subsection 9 of the Parliament Charter. We're making a formal contribution to galactic security. If we solve the Voidborn crisis, humanity claims its seat at the table. Varamis's form flickered with what might have been surprise, or rage. That clause requires Parliament approval. No, Sienna interrupted, pulling up the exact wording. It requires Parliament acknowledgement. By informing you of our intent, we've fulfilled the legal requirement. What happens next is up to us. Before Varamis could respond, Sienna severed the connection. That was either brilliant or suicidal, Marcus muttered. Often the same thing, Sienna replied. Zara, take us into the zone. Kayvon, what's our first move? The scientist pulled up sensor data from the nearest affected world, a planet the Parliament had designated as lost. The surface readings showed impossible things. Cities that existed and didn't exist simultaneously, seas that flowed upward, gravity wells that repelled instead of attracted. The Voidborn doesn't follow our physics because it's not from our reality, Kayvon explained. Working hypothesis, it's a trans-dimensional phenomenon. Something bleeding through from another universe where the rules are different. So how do we fight a hole in reality? Zara asked. We don't fight it, said a new voice. Everyone turned as Dr. Ilara Dine emerged from the research lab. The quantum physicist looked haggard but excited, clutching a tablet covered in equations. We've been thinking about this wrong, all of us, Parliament included, Ilara continued. They're trying to kill it, contain it, eliminate it. But the Voidborn isn't alive. It's not an invasion. It's a wound. Explain, Sienna said. Ilara projected her calculations into the air. Our universe and this other reality came into contact somehow. Maybe a natural phenomenon, maybe something the Calarians did accidentally. The Voidborn is the bleeding edge where incompatible physical laws meet. Fighting it just makes the tear worse. Then what do? Marcus pressed. We stitch it closed, Elara said simply. We heal the wound. Kayvon's eyes widened. The quantum resonance principle. If we can establish a stable field that harmonizes both sets of physical laws, we create a buffer zone where both realities can exist without destroying each other, Elara finished. The Voidborn doesn't spread because there's no more tearing. Do we have the technology for that? Sienna asked. No, Elara admitted. But the Parliament does. We just have to convince them to try a solution that goes against every instinct they have. Sienna looked at her crew, this small team of humans who decided to tackle the impossible. They were tired, understaffed, working with technology inferior to almost every other species in the galaxy. They had no right to succeed. Which was exactly why they might. All right, Sienna said. Let's show the galaxy what humans do best. Figure it out as we go. Zara set course for the Calarian homeworld. We need to get closer to study the phenomenon directly. As the Prometheus crossed into the quarantine zone, alarms began wailing across Axiom Prime. Delegate Corvin Thrace stormed into Chancellor Varami's private chambers. They actually did it, Corvin snarled. The humans crossed the boundary. Varamis stood at his observation window watching distant stars. Yes. We should destroy them now. Vaporize their ship before they contaminate themselves and spread the Voidborn further. Perhaps, Varamis said quietly. Then, surprising even himself, he added, or perhaps we wait. And watch. And see if these upstart primates can actually accomplish something. You can't be serious. Varamis turned, and for the first time in centuries, there was something other than certainty in his expression. The Parliament has ruled for 11,000 cycles, Corvin. We've grown. Comfortable. Predictable. Maybe what we need is something we've never had before. What's that? Someone crazy enough to try the impossible. Into the wound. The Calarian homeworld appeared on the view screen like a fever dream. Continents phased in and out of existence. Oceans hung suspended in midair before crashing back down in reverse time. Structures that had once been cities now existed as ghostly outlines, simultaneously ancient ruins and gleaming metropolises occupying the same space. Reading massive quantum fluctuations, Zarachin reported, her voice tight with tension. Reality is unstable. Some sections of spacetime are experiencing forward chronology, others backward, some not experiencing time at all. Dr. Elara Dine was frantically recording data, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and scientific ecstasy. It's beautiful, she whispered. Horrible but beautiful. We're seeing the actual boundary between two different universes. Can we survive getting closer? Sienna asked. Unknown, Kayvon admitted. But we've come this far. We need samples, direct measurements. Without data from inside the phenomenon, we're just guessing. Sienna made the decision. Take us in. Quarter impulse. Everyone monitor your stations for anomalies. As the Prometheus descended toward the planet's surface, reality began to protest. The ship's instruments went haywire. Zara watched her age increase and decrease by decades on the bioscanner. Marcus saw his reflection in a console screen wearing clothes he'd never owned, sporting scars he'd never received. Engaging stabilization fields, Zara announced. But I don't know how long they'll hold against this. They found a landing site near what had been the Calarian capital, a vast city of spires that now existed in 7 different temporal states simultaneously. The away team suited up, Sienna, Kayvon, Elara and Marcus, along with 2 security officers, Lieutenant James Curry and Corporal Yuki Tanaka. Suit integrity is critical, Kayvon warned as they assembled in the airlock. The atmosphere outside isn't just toxic, it's inconsistent. One moment it might be breathable, the next it might not exist at all. They stepped onto the surface of a dying world. The ground beneath their feet was solid, then liquid, then solid again in rhythmic pulses. Structures towered around them in impossible geometries, buildings that were simultaneously intact and crumbled, inhabited and abandoned. In the distance they could see Calarians themselves, ghostly figures moving through their daily lives, unaware they were already dead, trapped in temporal loops from before the Voidborn consumed everything. This is what the Parliament fears, Sienna said quietly. Not just death, but the complete unraveling of reality itself. Elara deployed scanning equipment, setting up a perimeter of quantum sensors. I'm detecting the exact frequency where our universe's physical constants clash with the neighboring reality. If I can map the interference pattern. She worked in silence for several minutes. Yes, I can see it. The wound has a shape, a structure. It's not random. Can we close it? Marcus asked. Not directly. But we can create a quantum seal, a buffer zone of neutral physics that prevents further tearing. It would require generating a field that encompasses the entire affected region. How much power? Sienna asked. Ilara's face fell. More than we have. More than 100 ships like the Prometheus have. We'd need a Parliament-class stellar converter at minimum. So we need their technology, Kayvon said. We need more than that, Ilara replied. We need their cooperation. This isn't something we can do alone. The sound made them all turn. One of the ghostly Calarians, a tall figure with 6 limbs and compound eyes, had stopped mid-stride. It was looking directly at them. That's not a temporal echo, Yuki whispered, hand moving to her weapon. The Calarian began moving toward them with deliberate purpose. As it approached, its form solidified, becoming more real, more present. It's adapting, Kayvon breathed. Whatever consciousness remained is using our presence, our stable reality, to anchor itself. The being stopped 3 meters away. When it spoke, the translation came through their suit computers in broken fragments. Waiting, cycles, help, trapped. You're aware? Sienna asked gently. You know what happened to your world? Collision, our fault, experiment, punched through barrier, didn't know, too late, dying forever. An experiment, Ilara said. They caused this themselves. Some kind of dimensional research that went catastrophically wrong. Can fix, knowledge remains, our data, archives. The Calarian raised an arm pointing toward a structure that flickered in and out of existence. Help us, help yourselves, same fate, any civilization without understanding. James stepped forward. It's trying to warn us. The same thing could happen to anyone doing advanced dimensional research. That's why the Parliament can't solve this, Sienna realized. They're afraid to get close enough to understand it. Afraid of making it worse. Afraid of suffering the same fate. The Calarian's form began to destabilize again, flickering like a bad signal. Archives, hurry, not much time. They moved quickly toward the structure the being had indicated, a massive repository that had once been a research facility. Inside, protected by some quirk of the dimensional instability, they found data cores intact. This is everything, Kayvon said as they downloaded terabytes of information. The Calarian's entire research into dimensional physics, including what went wrong. And how to fix it, Ilara added, scanning through formulas that made her eyes water. They'd figured out the solution before the end. They just didn't have the resources to implement it in time. But we do, Sienna said. Or rather, the Parliament does. As they returned to the ship, Sienna composed a message to Chancellor Varamis. It was concise. We have the solution. The Calarians left us the key before they died. We can heal the void-born wound and prevent it from ever happening again. But we need Parliament resources and cooperation. Ready to negotiate terms? On Axiom Prime, Varamis read the message with mounting disbelief. Beside him, Senator Lisa Morgan glowed with barely suppressed excitement. Impossible, Delegate Corvin Thrace spat. It's a bluff. They can't have solved in days what we couldn't solve in years. Can't they? Lisa asked. They're humans. They specialize in the impossible. Varamis was silent for a long moment. Then he composed his reply. Provide preliminary data for verification. If legitimate, we will discuss terms. But know this, Ambassador Dracker. If this is deception, if you are manipulating this crisis for political gain, I will personally ensure humanity never leaves your solar system again. Sienna smiled when she read it. He's scared. Scared people make deals. We're really doing this, Marcus said. Blackmailing the most powerful government in the galaxy. Not blackmail, Sienna corrected. Negotiation. We have something they desperately need. That's called leverage. She transmitted the Calarian data, just enough to prove they had the real solution, but not enough to implement it without human cooperation. Now came the hardest part, waiting for the Parliament to swallow its pride and admit it needed humanity's help. The response came 6 hours later. It wasn't from Varamis. It was from the entire Parliament, gathered in emergency session. They wanted to talk. The negotiation. The chamber had never been so full. Representatives from all 73 member species crowded into the celestial parliament, their platforms arranged in dense concentric rings. Additional observers floated at the periphery, scientists, military commanders, cultural leaders, all summoned for this unprecedented emergency session. At the chamber's center, on a specially constructed platform that had materialized overnight, stood Ambassador Sienna Dracker. She was alone. Marcus had wanted to accompany her, but Sienna refused. This moment required her to be solitary, vulnerable, a single human facing the assembled might of galactic civilization. The optics mattered as much as the words. Chancellor Varamis Kale stood on his elevated dais, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into sharp, aggressive patterns. Ambassador Dracker, you have made extraordinary claims. The Parliament has reviewed your preliminary data and found it intriguing. Intriguing, Sienna repeated flatly. Your own experts have confirmed the Calarian solution is viable. Don't insult both our intelligences with diplomatic understatement, Chancellor. A ripple of shock moved through the assembly. No one spoke to Varamis with such directness. You are in no position to make demands, Delegate Corvin Thrace snarled from his platform, his scaled features contorted with rage. Your species is not a parliament member. You have no rights here, no standing, no. We have the solution to your greatest crisis in 4,000 years, Sienna interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. That gives us standing. Article 47, subsection 9. We've made an undeniable contribution to galactic security. We're here to claim our seat. The Voidborn is contained, argued Ambassador Thyravex, her gossamer wings fluttering with agitation. Quarantined. We lose no more worlds to its spread. For now, Sienna said. She activated a holographic display, showing projections based on the Calarian data. According to their research, the dimensional wound is still growing, slowly but growing. In another 50 years, it will breach your quarantine. In a century, it will consume a dozen systems. In 2 centuries, half the Parliament's territory will be affected. The chamber erupted in alarmed murmurs. Varamis raised a crystalline hand for silence. Your own projections showed stable containment, he said coldly. Your projections were wrong, Sienna replied. You didn't understand what you were measuring. The Calarians did. They studied this phenomenon for decades before it killed them. And their final gift to the galaxy was the knowledge of how to stop it, knowledge we now possess. Senator Lisa Morgan's luminous form pulsed with interest. What do you require to implement the solution? 3 stellar converters, Sienna said, pulling up the technical specifications. Synchronized quantum field generators. A fleet of 50 vessels to maintain the perimeter during the sealing process. And full access to Parliament computational networks. We'll need processing power beyond what humanity currently possesses. That's a fleet-scale commitment, Corvin protested. For a solution you claim to have but won't share. Oh, we'll share, Sienna said. The moment humanity is granted full Parliament membership with all rights and privileges thereof. Not probationary status. Not observer status. Full membership. 1 civilization, 1 vote, equal standing with every species in this chamber. The demand sent the assembly into chaos. Delegates shouted over each other in 17 different languages. Varamis called for order repeatedly before the cacophony subsided. Impossible, the Chancellor said. The requirements for membership are absolute. Unity threshold, peaceful coexistence, technological parity. Requirements you've waived before, Sienna interrupted. I've studied your history, Chancellor. The Etherian Compact was granted emergency membership after only 40 years of unified government when they provided the technology for faster-than-light communication. The Dravic hegemony was admitted despite active internal conflicts when they shared their military innovations. The Parliament has made exceptions when the contribution justified it. Those were different circumstances. These are more dire circumstances, Sienna said. You face a threat that could unmake reality itself. We offer salvation. The price is a seat at this table. Delegate Nasira Krell of the Zenithian Symposium spoke, her voice resonant and measured. And if we refuse? If we take your data by force and implement the solution ourselves? Sienna smiled. You could try. The data is heavily encrypted with quantum locks that will corrupt it if tampered with. Only specific human genetic markers can unlock it safely, mine specifically. Kill me or coerce me and the data becomes useless. You'll get fragments, maybe, but not enough to implement the solution correctly. We could torture the information from you, Corvin said darkly. You could, Sienna agreed, her voice unwavering. But you won't. Because the moment you do, every species in the galaxy learns that the mighty celestial parliament tortures diplomats and steals from those who help them. Your moral authority, the foundation of your power, crumbles overnight. Varami studied her with all four eyes. You've thought this through. I've had 20 years to think about it, Sienna said. 20 years of watching my people be treated as children playing in an adult's galaxy. 20 years of rejection, condescension, and dismissal. We're done asking nicely, Chancellor. We're done proving ourselves by your standards. We've brought you a solution to the unsolvable. That makes us valuable. And valuable things don't beg, they negotiate. Senator Lisa Morgan descended from her platform, floating to Sienna's level, a significant gesture. What guarantees do we have that humanity will honor Parliament law once admitted? Your species is fractious, prone to conflict. What guarantee did you have from any species before admission? Sienna countered. The Draviks still war among their clan states. The Melodian Collective barely maintains consensus. The Zenithians have 3 competing factions in their government. You don't require perfection, you require commitment. We commit to Parliament law. We commit to galactic peace. We commit to being part of something larger than ourselves. Pretty words, Corvin muttered. They're the same words every species spoke when they joined, Sienna said. We're not special. We're not perfect. We're just ready. And you need us. Varamis raised his hand and silence fell immediately. The Parliament will deliberate. You will wait outside. Sienna bowed, just deeply enough to be respectful without being subservient, and exited the chamber. In the antechamber, Marcus was pacing frantically. Well? Now we wait, Sienna said, allowing herself to finally show the exhaustion. She collapsed into a chair. Either they swallow their pride or they don't. And if they don't? Then we've failed. And the Voidborn eventually consumes the galaxy, and humanity is restricted to our solar system forever. No pressure, Marcus said dryly. Inside the Parliament chamber, the debate raged for 6 hours. Delegates argued philosophical principles, legal precedents, political ramifications. Corvin Thrace led the opposition, painting humanity as dangerous upstarts who would destabilize the careful balance of power. Lisa Morgan countered that new voices brought new solutions, exactly what the Parliament needed. Finally, Varamis called for a vote. The chamber fell silent as each delegate cast their decision. Holographic tallies appeared in the air, green for acceptance, red for rejection. The count climbed, 31 green, 32 red, 33 green, 35 red. The final count appeared, 38 in favor, 35 opposed. It was enough. Varamis looked at the results with an expression that might have been resignation or relief. Even he wasn't sure. Recall Ambassador Dracker. When Sienna re-entered, she knew immediately from the Chancellor's posture what had happened. The Celestial Parliament, Varamis announced formally, recognizes the sovereign species of humanity as full members, effective immediately, pursuant to Article 47, subsection 9. You will receive 1 representative seat with full voting privileges. Sienna felt tears threatening but forced them back. Thank you, Chancellor. Don't thank me, Varamis said. Prove we made the right decision. Provide the complete solution and help us implement it. Show the galaxy that humanity deserves this seat. We will, Sienna promised. As she left the chamber, Marcus was waiting with the rest of the crew. They saw her face and knew. We did it, she whispered. We're in. The celebration would come later. First, they had a reality wound to heal. The ceiling. 3 stellar converters hung in formation around the Calarian homeworld, each one a massive construct the size of a small moon. They'd been towed into position over the past week, following the specifications from the Calarian archives that Sienna had finally fully shared. The Prometheus floated at the center of a fleet of 53 vessels from 17 different species, the largest cooperative operation in recent Parliament history. On the bridge, Sienna watched the coordinated effort with a mixture of pride and terror. This has to work, Marcus muttered beside her, voicing everyone's unspoken fear. Dr. Ilaridine was at the science station, managing calculations across multiple quantum computers simultaneously. The theory is sound. The Calarians proved it mathematically before the end. We're just implementing what they couldn't. Theoretical proof and practical application are different things, Kayvon reminded her. He was coordinating with xenoscientists from a dozen species, all contributing their expertise to the effort. Chancellor Varamis appeared on the main view screen, broadcasting from Axiom Prime. All vessels report ready, Ambassador Dracker. The Parliament awaits your command. The weight of that moment settled on Sienna's shoulders. They were trusting humanity, trusting her, to orchestrate an operation that would either save countless worlds or potentially make the crisis worse. Begin sequence alpha, she ordered. Bring the converters to 40% power. The stellar converters began to glow, drawing energy from the neutron star at the system's edge. Massive gravitational lenses focused and channeled exotic particles that existed only in quantum states. The fleet's vessels activated their synchronized field generators, creating a web of energy that encompassed the entire planet. On the surface below, automated probes deployed throughout what remained of the Calarian civilization activated simultaneously. Each one contained quantum resonators tuned to specific frequencies, the harmonic wavelengths where two realities could coexist without destroying each other. Phase 1 complete, Zarachin reported. Field matrix is stable. Energy flow nominal. Initiating Phase 2, Elara announced. Quantum harmonization in 3, 2, 1, mark. The universe screamed. That was the only way to describe the sensation that rippled through every ship, every mind, every consciousness within a light year of the operation. It wasn't sound, it was reality itself protesting as two incompatible physics tried to reconcile. Alarms shrieked across every console. On the view screen, space itself seemed to bend and twist. The Calarian world below flickered through 1,000 different states. Pristine, ruined, non-existent, multiplied, burning, frozen, alive again. The wound is fighting us, Kayvon gasped, his nose bleeding from the psychic pressure. Across the fleet, medical emergencies were erupting as the reality distortion affected organic minds. Hold formation. Sienna commanded, her own head pounding. All vessels maintain field integrity. Elara, can we compensate? Trying. The physicist's fingers blurred across her controls. The resistance is stronger than projected. The dimensional boundary doesn't want to seal, it's become self-sustaining. On Axiom Prime, Delegate Corvin Thrace watched the operation with barely concealed hope that it would fail. Beside him, Senator Lisa Morgan glowed with intensity. If this doesn't work, Corvin began. It will work, Lisa said firmly. It has to. Aboard the Prometheus, Elara made a decision. We need more power. The converters are at 40%, but the Calarian calculations suggested we might need up to 80. At 80%, we risk destabilizing the neutron star itself, Marcus protested. At current power, we're not sealing the wound, Elara shot back. We're just irritating it. Ambassador? Sienna felt every eye on the bridge turn to her. This was the moment, the decision that would prove humanity's worth or condemn them as reckless children playing with forces beyond their understanding. She thought of the ghostly Calarians trapped in their dying loops. She thought of the worlds that would fall if the Voidborn continued spreading. She thought of humanity's future among the stars. Take us to 80%, she ordered. All converters synchronized increase. Do it slowly, 5% every 30 seconds. The power climbed. 50%. 55. 60. The quantum field intensified, becoming visible to the naked eye as reality itself bent under the strain. The Calarian world below began to stabilize, its flickering slowing. Past and present and future started to separate back into linear time. 70%. Lieutenant James Curry suddenly cried out, pointing at his instruments. Spatial tear forming at grid reference 774. The stress is creating new fractures. Compensate with secondary generators. Sienna ordered. Across the fleet, ships adjusted their positions, redirecting energy to reinforce the weak point. 75%. The stellar converters were blazing now, each one outputting more energy than most civilizations used in a year. The neutron star's radiation bathed everything in lethal waves, only barely contained by the fleet's shielding. Harmonic resonance approaching threshold, Elara reported. Her voice was tight with stress but steady with determination. Another 3% should do it. 80%. The universe stopped screaming. Instead, there was a sound like a sigh, vast and cosmic and impossibly gentle. The quantum field matrix locked into place, creating a buffer zone of neutral physics where two realities could coexist without conflict. The dimensional wound, starved of the destructive interference that had sustained it, began to close. On the surface below, the Calarian world stabilized. Buildings existed in only one timeline. Seas flowed in the proper direction. The ghostly figures of the lost civilization faded peacefully, finally released from their temporal prison. It's working, Kayvon breathed. By all the stars, it's actually working. The sealing process took 14 hours. As the quantum field maintained its harmonic resonance, the dimensional tear contracted, smaller and smaller, until it was nothing more than a microscopic fluctuation, present but harmless, sealed behind layers of stabilized spacetime. When the last reading confirmed the success, the bridge of the Prometheus erupted in cheers. Across the fleet, crews of 17 different species celebrated together. Chancellor Varames appeared on every view screen, his crystalline features reflecting light in patterns that might have been wonder. Ambassador Dracker, he said, his voice carrying genuine respect for perhaps the first time. On behalf of the Celestial Parliament, humanity has our gratitude. The Voidborn crisis is ended. Your contribution to galactic security is confirmed and undeniable. We couldn't have done it alone, Chancellor, Sienna replied. This was cooperation. The Calarians provided knowledge. Humanity provided the solution. The Parliament provided the resources. Together we achieved the impossible. Yes, Varames said quietly. Together. Perhaps that's a lesson the Parliament needed to learn. As the fleet began its return journey to Axiom Prime, Sienna stood at the viewport watching the Calarian world recede. It would take centuries for the ecosystem to recover, but it would recover. Life would return. The wound had healed. Marcus appeared beside her. You know what comes next, right? Now we actually have to govern alongside them. Participate in Parliament sessions. Make decisions about galactic policy. Sienna smiled. Good. It's about time humanity had a voice in how this galaxy is run. We're going to make mistakes, Marcus warned. Undoubtedly, Sienna agreed. But we'll also bring new perspectives, new ideas, new energy. The Parliament has been running on autopilot for millennia. We're going to shake things up. That's what I'm afraid of, Marcus muttered, but he was smiling. Below, in the recovered archives, automated systems activated for the first time in years. The Calarians' final message, their legacy, transmitted one last time before the systems peacefully shut down forever. To those who healed our wound, thank you. May your civilization never make our mistakes. May your curiosity be tempered with wisdom. And may the stars always welcome you. The first session. The Celestial Parliament chamber had never felt so electric with anticipation. Sienna Dracker stood on humanity's newly constructed platform, positioned at the outer ring alongside the most recent members, but still present, still official, still there. She wore formal diplomatic attire, a simple but elegant suit in deep blue, the color of Earth's oceans, with a small pin representing her planet's continents. No ostentatious displays. Just a human ready to represent her species. Marcus Vallon and Dr. Kayvon Reese floated on an adjacent observation platform, present but not speaking. This was Sienna's moment. Chancellor Varames Kale called the session to order with a resonant chime. The Celestial Parliament recognizes for the first time the representative of humanity. Ambassador Sienna Dracker, you have the floor to present your credentials and opening statement. Sienna activated her platform's projection system, and Earth appeared in holographic form above her, beautiful, blue-green, scarred but resilient. Honored members, she began, her voice calm and clear. I stand before you as the voice of 8 billion souls who have dreamed of this moment. Humanity thanks the Parliament for this opportunity to join you in governance of our shared galaxy. We are not perfect. Our world bears the marks of conflict, environmental damage, struggles with inequality and division. We do not claim to have solved all our problems. But we've learned from them. We've grown. And we continue to grow. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show images. The Voidborn sealing operation, human and alien scientists working side by side, vessels from 17 species moving in perfect coordination. What we offer the Parliament is not perfection, but perspective. We are a young species, yes, but youth brings fresh eyes. We see solutions where others see impossibilities because we haven't learned yet what's supposed to be impossible. The Voidborn crisis proved that sometimes the best answer comes from those who don't know they shouldn't ask the question. Ambassador Thyra Vex of the Melodian Collective fluttered her wings in what might have been approval. Delegate Corvin Thrace remained stonily silent. We bring with us other gifts, Sienna continued. Cultural diversity. Earth alone has thousands of distinct societies, languages, traditions. We understand difference because we embody it. We bring adaptability, creativity, and the stubbornness to never accept defeat even when wisdom suggests we should. But most importantly, we bring commitment. Commitment to the principles this Parliament was founded upon. Cooperation, mutual security, peaceful coexistence, and the advancement of all civilized species. We pledge to uphold Parliament law, to contribute our fair share to collective defense, and to work toward the betterment of all. She paused, letting her words settle. We know we have much to learn. We will make mistakes. We will sometimes frustrate our colleagues with our unconventional approaches. But we promise to always engage in good faith, to listen as much as we speak, and to remember that we are part of something greater than ourselves. Varamis inclined his head slightly. The Parliament accepts your credentials and welcomes humanity formally into our assembly. Your species receives one vote in all matters, equal standing with all members, and the rights and responsibilities outlined in the Parliament Charter. Thank you, Chancellor, Sienna said, allowing herself a small smile of triumph. Now, Varamis continued, we proceed to today's agenda. First matter, the Dracorian border dispute requires. Point of order, Sienna interrupted. The chamber fell silent. Interrupting the Chancellor on procedural matters was technically allowed but rarely done. Yes, Ambassador Dracker? Varamis asked, his tone carefully neutral. I'd like to propose an amendment to Article 12, Section 4 of the Parliament Charter, the unity threshold requirement for membership. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Corvin Thrace's scales bristled with immediate hostility. Explain, Varamis commanded. Sienna pulled up the relevant charter text. Current requirements mandate that species achieve unified planetary government and 3 centuries of peaceful coexistence before consideration. I propose we modify this to allow for exceptions based on demonstrated capacity for cooperation, contribution to galactic welfare, and commitment to Parliament principles. Absolutely not, Corvin snarled. You're barely through the door and already trying to change the rules? I'm trying to make the rules more fair, Sienna countered. The unity threshold made sense when it was established. It ensured stable, mature civilizations joined the Parliament. But it's also deeply conservative. It privileges certain governmental structures over others. It assumes that peace must be absolute rather than sufficient. Senator Lisa Morgan's form pulsed with interest. Continue. Consider the Dravic hegemony, Sienna said, gesturing to Corvin's platform. They still have active clan conflicts, internal power struggles. Yet they're Parliament members because when they were admitted, they demonstrated they could set aside differences for larger purposes. That was different, Corvin began. How? Sienna challenged. Because it was you? Because it happened 4,000 years ago so it's now traditional? Delegate Nasira Krell spoke thoughtfully. What specific changes do you propose? Keep the unity threshold as the standard path, Sienna said. But add alternative qualification criteria. Exceptional contribution to galactic welfare as we've demonstrated. Proven capacity to cooperate with Parliament species on major projects. Commitment to upholding Parliament law even without formal membership. Give species multiple pathways to prove themselves. This would open the floodgates, argued Ambassador Thyra Vex. Every species would claim their situation is exceptional. Then we evaluate claims rigorously, Sienna replied. The Parliament already has assessment mechanisms. Use them. Judge species by their actions and potential, not just by arbitrary time requirements. Varamis studied her carefully. This is about more than just the charter, isn't it? You have species in mind. Sienna nodded. The Turellian Collective. The Nomadic Ventari. The Crystalline Chorus. All denied membership because they don't fit the traditional model, but all of them peaceful, cooperative, valuable potential partners. The galaxy is diverse, Chancellor. Our membership criteria should reflect that. This requires substantial deliberation, Varamis said. Such amendments are not decided in a single session. I understand, Sienna said. I'm formally proposing it for consideration. Put it on the agenda for future sessions. Let the Parliament debate it properly. Noted, Varamis said. The proposal will be reviewed by the Charter Committee and scheduled for full debate. Now, may we proceed to the actual agenda? Of course, Chancellor, Sienna said, settling back onto her platform. As the session continued through various matters, resource allocation, trade disputes, scientific collaboration protocols, Sienna participated actively but carefully. She asked questions, offered perspectives, but didn't dominate. She was learning the rhythms of Parliament procedure, understanding the unspoken alliances and rivalries. When they reached a debate about military fleet positioning in response to pirate activity, she saw her opportunity. If I may, she interjected during a lull. Earth has experience with asymmetric warfare and irregular combatants. Our history of dealing with pirates, both maritime and digital, might offer insights. Delegate Corvin scoffed. Human warfare is primitive compared to galactic standards. Primitive, perhaps, Sienna acknowledged, but effective. Pirates don't follow conventional military logic. They're opportunistic, adaptive. Sometimes the best response isn't overwhelming force but strategic positioning and intelligence gathering. She shared tactical recommendations based on Earth's naval strategies, adapted for space combat. To her surprise, several military-focused delegates leaned forward with interest. Even Corvin grudgingly took notes. By the end of the 6-hour session, Sienna was exhausted but exhilarated. As delegates filed out, several approached her. Senator Lisa Morgan was first. "Your charter amendment will face fierce opposition." "I know," Sienna said. "But it's necessary," Lisa continued. "The parliament has grown stagnant." "You're right about that. Expect my support when it comes to vote." "Thank you, Senator." Delegate Nasira Krell approached next. "Your tactical insights regarding pirates. The Zenithian Symposium would be interested in consulting with Earth's military strategists. Perhaps an exchange program?" "The symposium would be honored," Sienna replied, her heart racing. Real cooperation. Real partnerships forming. Even Ambassador Thyra Vex paused. "You made your case well today. We may not always agree, but I appreciate your directness." Only Corvin Thrace departed without acknowledgement, his hostility unchanged. Back aboard the Prometheus, the crew celebrated. "You were incredible," Marcus said, pouring something that approximated champagne from the ship's limited supplies. "One session and you're already proposing charter amendments and forming alliances." "We have to move fast," Sienna said. "Prove we're serious. Prove we're valuable. Prove we deserve this seat." "You've already proven that," Kayvon reminded her. "Today, yes. But this is just the beginning. The real work starts now, showing that humanity can be a force for positive change in this galaxy." Dr. Ilara Dine looked up from her tablet. "Speaking of which, I've been analyzing some Parliament scientific initiatives. There's a terraforming project that's been stalled for years. With human expertise in environmental engineering." "Yes," Sienna said immediately. "Find out more. If we can contribute, we should." She looked out the viewport at Axiom Prime, that massive station orbiting its neutron star. Somewhere in that structure, 73 other species were working, debating, governing. And now humanity was part of it. "We're not visitors anymore," she said softly. "We're not guests. We're members. We have responsibilities now. Obligations. But also opportunities." "And enemies," Marcus added. "Corvin isn't going to just accept us." "No," Sienna agreed. "But he'll have to work with us. That's the beauty of this system. Even our opponents can't simply eliminate us. They have to engage, debate, compete in the marketplace of ideas." She raised her glass. "To humanity's first day as a galactic power. May it be the first of many." The crew echoed the toast, their voices mingling with hope and determination. The real work was just beginning. The new dawn. 6 months had passed since humanity's admission to the Celestial Parliament, and the galaxy had already changed. Sienna stood before the assembled delegates once again, but this time the atmosphere was different. The initial skepticism had evolved into something more complex. A mixture of respect, wariness, cooperation, and in some cases, genuine friendship. "The terraforming project on Helios 4 is proceeding ahead of schedule," she reported to the full assembly. "Human engineers working with Zenithian scientists have developed a new atmospheric processing technique that's 40% more efficient than previous methods." On the view screen behind her, images showed the transformation of a barren world into habitable terrain. Humans and aliens worked side by side in environmental suits, planting the first vegetation, establishing water reclamation systems, building the foundations of a new settlement. Chancellor Varamis nodded with approval. "The Parliament commends this collaboration. Helios 4 will serve as a model for future development projects." Delegate Nasira Krell added, "The Zenithian Symposium proposes expanding this partnership. We have 12 additional worlds that could benefit from similar techniques." "Earth stands ready," Sienna confirmed. What she didn't mention, what everyone in the chamber now understood, was that each success built humanity's influence. Each project created connections, dependencies, relationships. Humanity wasn't just occupying a seat, they were weaving themselves into the fabric of galactic civilization. The session moved on to other matters, but when they reached the day's major agenda item, tension filled the chamber. "The Charter Committee," Varamis announced, "has completed its review of Ambassador Drakker's proposed amendment to the Unity Threshold requirements. The floor is now open for final debate before the vote." This was it. The moment Sienna had been building toward for 6 months. She'd spent countless hours lobbying, negotiating, making her case to individual delegates. She'd formed alliances, made compromises, traded favors in the complex web of parliament politics. Delegate Corvin Thrace rose first, predictably. This amendment represents a dangerous dilution of parliament standards. The unity threshold exists for good reason, to ensure that only mature, stable civilizations join our ranks. Weakening it invites chaos. Chaos, Senator Lisa Morgan countered, her luminous form bright with conviction. Or diversity. The Corvin speaks of stability, but I wonder if he truly means stagnation. The Parliament has admitted no new members in over 2 centuries prior to humanity. Not because no species qualified, but because our standards had become so rigid that only those who perfectly mirrored our existing members could pass. Ambassador Thyra Vex, surprisingly, spoke in support. I initially opposed this amendment. But watching humanity these past months has changed my perspective. They've contributed more in half a year than some species have in centuries. Perhaps our traditional metrics don't capture true value. The debate raged for 2 hours. Arguments about precedent and principle. Concerns about quality versus quantity. Questions about how alternative qualifications would be assessed, who would judge them, what safeguards would exist. Finally, Sienna was given the floor for closing remarks. Honored delegates, she began. 6 months ago, I stood here as an outsider asking to be let in. Today I stand as a colleague, a partner, a member of this assembly. And I'm asking you to give other species the same opportunity you gave humanity. The unity threshold was never meant to be a wall, it was meant to be a standard. A measure of readiness. But there are many ways to be ready. Many paths to demonstrate commitment to Parliament principles. The Tyrellian Collective has maintained peace for 800 years despite having a decentralized government structure. Should their political organization disqualify them from membership? The nomadic Ventari live on generation ships, never settling on worlds. Does that make them unsuitable for galactic citizenship? She pulled up data showing species that had been denied membership, their qualifications and contributions. Each of these civilizations has something unique to offer. Each represents perspectives and capabilities the Parliament currently lacks. Yes, evaluating them through alternative criteria will require more work, more judgment calls, more risk. But the reward is a Parliament that truly represents the diversity of intelligent life, not just those who happen to fit an ancient template. The galaxy is changing. New challenges arise that our ancestors couldn't have imagined. The Voidborn crisis proved that sometimes the solution comes from unexpected sources. By limiting membership to only those who meet traditional standards, we limit our own potential to adapt and innovate. She paused, letting her gaze move across the assembled delegates. I'm not asking you to abandon standards. I'm asking you to expand them. To judge species by their character and contributions, not just their conformity. To build a parliament that's stronger through diversity rather than uniformity. Vote for this amendment not for humanity's sake, we're already members. Vote for it because it's right. Because it's just. And because the galaxy deserves a governing body that reflects its true complexity. Sienna sat down. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Varami spoke. The vote will now commence. All delegates, submit your decision. The holographic tally appeared in the center of the chamber. Green lights for yes, red for no. The count climbed as 73 civilizations made their choice. Sienna felt Marcus's hand grip her shoulder from the observation platform. This was out of her control now. She'd made her case. The rest was up to the Parliament. The final count appeared, 41 in favor. 32 opposed. The amendment passed. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Cheers from some delegates, protests from others, stunned silence from many. Varamis called for order, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. The amendment is adopted, he announced formally. Article 12, Section 4 is hereby modified to include alternative qualification pathways for Parliament membership. The Charter Committee will develop implementation protocols over the next cycle. As the session adjourned, Sienna was immediately surrounded by delegates. Some offered congratulations, others voiced concerns, a few simply wanted to understand what this change would mean practically. Senator Lisa Morgan floated close. You've changed the Parliament today. Truly changed it. I hope you're ready for the consequences. Are they ever predictable? Sienna asked. Never, Lisa replied with what might have been a smile. That's what makes it interesting. Even Delegate Corvin approached, though his expression remained hostile. This isn't over, human. You've opened a door that may let in forces you can't control. Or allies we desperately need, Sienna countered. I guess we'll find out together. That evening, aboard the Prometheus, the crew gathered for a quieter celebration. You did it, Dr. Ilaradine said, raising her glass. Changed galactic law. Made the Parliament more inclusive. That's incredible. It's just the beginning, Sienna said. But she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 6 months ago, humanity had been begging for a seat at the table. Now they were reshaping the table itself. What's next? Marcus asked. Sienna pulled up a list on her tablet. 3 species have already submitted applications under the new alternative criteria. The Turellian Collective, the Nomadic Ventari, the Crystalline Chorus. We need to help them make their cases, support their evaluations. Why? Kayvon asked. We could just focus on consolidating our own position. Because that's not who we are, Sienna said firmly. We didn't fight to join an exclusive club, we fought to change a system that was too limited. If we succeeded and then pulled up the ladder behind us, what would that say about us? That we're politicians? Marcus suggested dryly. That we're hypocrites, Sienna corrected. No. We help others get in. We build coalitions. We work to make the Parliament stronger and more representative. That's how we'll truly earn our place, not by jealously guarding our seat, but by making sure worthy species can claim theirs. A notification chimed. Sienna checked it and smiled. What? Marcus asked. Message from the Turellian Collective. They're asking for humanity's assistance with their application. Specifically requesting me as an advisor. You can't take on everything, Kayvon warned. I can try, Sienna said. Besides, we won't be alone. Look. She showed them another message, from Senator Lisa Morgan, offering Etherean support for the new application process. Then another from Ambassador Thyra Vex, proposing a cooperative evaluation framework. We're not just changing the rules, Ilara observed. We're changing the culture. That's the real victory, Sienna agreed. Laws can be modified. Culture is harder to shift. But if we can make the Parliament truly embrace diversity, truly value different perspectives, that's when we'll know we've succeeded. She walked to the viewport looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Turellian Collective was preparing their application. The Nomadic Ventari were gathering evidence of their contributions. The Crystalline Chorus was making their case. And on Earth, 8 billion humans were waking up to a new reality. They weren't just part of the galactic community, they were helping to shape it. 6 months ago we took our seat, Sienna said softly. Today we made sure others can take theirs. Tomorrow we figure out what kind of galaxy we want to build. Marcus joined her at the viewport. Think the Parliament is ready for that? Sienna smiled. They'd better be. Because humanity doesn't do anything halfway. We're here now. We're members. And we're going to make sure this galaxy lives up to its potential, whether the old guard is ready or not. In the Celestial Parliament chamber on Axiom Prime, Chancellor Varamis Kale stood alone after all the delegates had departed. He looked at the newly added platform representing humanity, thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. The humans had done exactly what he'd feared they would. Disrupted the comfortable order, challenged ancient assumptions, forced the Parliament to evolve. But they'd also done what he'd secretly hoped they might. Reminded the galaxy that growth required discomfort, that progress demanded risk, and that sometimes the most valuable voices were the ones you hadn't expected to hear. So it begins, Varamis said to the empty chamber. The age of humanity in Parliament. May we all survive it. But despite his words, there was something in his tone that might have been anticipation. The galaxy was changing. And perhaps, after 11,000 cycles, that was exactly what it needed.